Hello, everybody. It is me, John Flynn, once again, as today is July 17th, and that marks 50 days until the start of the 2019 NFL season, the centennial season for the National Football League. And today, there will be some teams that have due dates for players, especially rookies, to report to training camps. So, with this in mind, that and to get us kickstarted for the NFL season, that I have power ranked all 32 teams across the NFL as to how I think this season is going to go and how good all these teams are. From 32 to 1, we're going to go right up. So I think without any further ado, let us begin with number 32, the Miami Dolphins. And Brian Flores has a lot of work to do in his first year as an NFL head coach. Brian Flores comes over from the Patriots after leading them to a Super Bowl on defense, held the Rams just 3 points on Super Bowl Sunday. And he has a lot of new pieces that he needs to work around. That the Dolphins did have a decent offseason as they begin year number one of what is to be a lengthy rebuild, that they traded for former Arizona Cardinals quarterback Josh Rosen to be their quarterback of the future. But that does leave a quarterback controversy, as they also brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick, who played pretty well in stretches last season with Tampa, as it was pretty obvious from the start that Ryan Tannehill was really never the answer, nor was he ever going to be. The offensive line is a mess right now in Miami. There's no legitimate NFL running back on the roster in terms of who is capable of carrying the load as a three-down running back. That's not present in that room. Everywhere is on this roster is quite deficient. And the Dolphins may wind up trying to trade Rosen in order to get someone like Tua Tagovailoa or Trevor Lawrence in the drafts in the next couple of years. Number 31, the Cincinnati Bengals. A.J. Green, Andy Dalton, Tyler Eifert. Used to be great. Now they're aging. They're hoping to stay healthy. If they don't stay healthy, bends the brakes. Cincinnati, little depth around the offense and the defense. Offensive line, too, is a mess. And Zach Taylor needs to prove right away that he has the mindset that he saw with Sean McVay as an assistant with the LA Rams. And Andy Dalton, A.J. Green need to stay healthy if the Bengals want any chance of competing for a wild card spot. But this is one of those teams where everything needs to break right to at least contend for a wild card spot. Number 30, the Oakland Raiders. Why are the Raiders number 30 when they just traded for Antonio Brown this offseason? The Raiders are still a mess. They are a team that is full of distractions, with Hard Knocks coming up for the Raiders. John Gruden in year number 2 of a ridiculous 10-year contract as the head coach of the Oakland Raiders. And no, I don't want to hear anything concerning Derek Carr with as being part of the problem with the Oakland Raiders. He is not part of the problem. But the question is, can Antonio Brown be a difference maker on and off the field? Because he had he had a spring full of turmoil with demanding a trade with the Steelers, and now bashing the Steelers on social media throughout the offseason. And is that going to be a distraction? Is John Gruden going to be unhappy and make him unhappy? And it was pretty clear that the Oakland Raiders lost the Khalil Mack trade after what the defense did for Oakland in the last season, and can the defense look any success at all? That do they have playmakers? Do they have answers? Do they have any? Do they have anyone on their next championship caliber's defense on its roster? The answer to me is no. And also another thing, have you seen their schedule? Their schedule is really, really hard this year. They got 2 games with the Chiefs. They got 2 games with the Chargers. They got to They got to play Indianapolis. They got to play Tennessee. They got to play Houston. They got to play the Jaguars with Nick Foles. They got to play Chicago with Khalil Mack. They got to play Minnesota, Green Bay. Yeah, that's a recipe for a really long season for Raiders fans in Oakland. Number 29, the Washington Redskins. The Redskins took their quarterback of the future in Dwayne Haskins with the 15th pick in the draft. They also took what is considered to be one of the steals in the draft, and Montez Sweat at number 26. The front seven is going to be good. They have Jonathan Allen, they have Ryan Kerrigan, the veteran, but the problem with Washington is, can they really stay healthy? And yes, Washington did have a big blow before week number 1 last year when Darius Geis went down with a torn ACL. But he needs to show he can be a legitimate NFL running back, because there were scouts in the draft that were pretty high on him before he tore his ACL, and he needs to show that the ACL injury is going to be one in which he can recover from. And the other side of the field, the offenses that actually rely on Jordan Reed and a 34-year-old Adrian Peterson are not going to be good. But that's just exactly the offense of the Washington Redskins. Number 28, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Issues on defense. Tons of questions to answer in the secondary. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, let's just face it, was absolutely positively atrocious last year. And yes, they have some nice pieces in JPP and Gerald McCoy, Jason Pierre-Paul coming off a 12.5 sack season. And they did get a very good get with Devin White with the 5th pick of the draft. But can Devin White help make Tampa Bay into a serviceable defense? Can Jameis Winston prove he's an NFL caliber quarterback? Because I believe this is like the last year of his rookie contract, and he is a free agent at the end of the year. And I'm also interested to see how the duo of Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles come together. And yes, it's not new if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, because a year when Carson Palmer got hurt, the Cardinals still made the playoffs with that duo intact. But yes, this Tampa Bay team is far less talented than the Arizona team that made the playoffs in 2014. But can they work together like they did in 2013 and 2014? I still think they have a lot of issues on both sides of the football that need to be addressed, and quite frankly, not many of them were addressed in the offseason. Number 27, the Detroit Lions. The rebuilding since 1957 Detroit Lions is. And can Matthew Stafford stay healthy this season? And yes, Stafford has had some injury problems over the last few seasons, but the Matt Stafford has shown that he's a franchise caliber quarterback, that he has a talented arm, he can scramble out of the pocket. But can the Detroit Lions actually buy into Matt Patricia in year number 2 as a head coach? Sources say that that the Lions are buying into Patricia, but can they play like they bought into him? And yes, the defense did get better with the defensive-oriented mind, but if the Lions have issues on offense, can he steer the ship and steer it rightly in order for them to take the game into the next level? And I really like Darius Slay. He played at an excellent level defensively last year at corner, but yeah, if the Lions want any chance of sniffing a postseason berth in what's going to be a really difficult division to play with Minnesota, Green Bay, and Chicago, that he needs to be his 2018 self in order for that to possibly happen. Number 26, my New York Football Giants. And everyone is scrutinizing Dave Gettleman and myself included, for the trade of Olivier Vernon to Cleveland and the trade of Odell Beckham Jr. to Cleveland, who now he's paired up with Jarvis Landry in Cleveland. But the bottom line for the Giants is they get they lock up Sterling Shepard long term. They bring in Golden Tate. They have a former first round pick of receiver in Corey Coleman. They have a top 5 tight end in Evan Ingram. But the bottom line is that the Giants have some nice pieces in the receiving corps, even without Odell Beckham Jr. But the key to the season is the offensive line playing well and staying healthy. They don't have much depth on the bench in the trenches, and this was something I actually give Dave Gettleman credit for, that he brings in Kevin Zeitler, one of the better pass blocking linemen in the league, and he brings in Mike Remmers, who can be a candidate for a bounce back season, and John Halepo playing center. The O-line is actually not that bad. This is actually the best offensive line I've seen the Giants have under their belt in the last 6 or 7 years. So that's why I have the Giants ranked 26 instead of 30 or 31 like most pundits have them. And Saquon Barkley is going to be great again. That it's going to be interesting to see if and when the Giants pull Eli Manning for the services of Daniel Jones, who the Giants got at 6. I would have gotten him at 17, but one of the two quarterbacks that I think would fit into Pat Shurmur's system were Dwayne Haskins. The other was Daniel Jones. So I'm interested in seeing how Daniel Jones fits in. That it's probably going to be a process. The Giants are not a playoff team this year. I don't think they'll be next year, but Daniel Jones has a lot of doubters after the Giant with a pick being that high. And on the other side, the defense is still going to be young. The secondary is going to be a point of vulnerability this season, and the Giants did address that by taking one of the better cornerbacks in the draft, and DeAndre Baker. The Giants traded up for him at number 30. They also add Dexter Lawrence to the defensive line at 17. And yes, the Giants have 3 first-round picks. I'm very interested in seeing if they'll make impacts this year. But the Giants is still a long ways out from being a playoff contender. Number 25, the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to be one of those interesting teams. They're going to be how can things mesh together? You have Kyler Murray, the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, now under center after the Cardinals traded Josh Rosen to Miami. You have first year under head coach Cliff Kingsbury, who comes over from the Big 12. And yes, there are still those interesting names across the board. Offensively, David Johnson, who had a full offseason to get prepared for the season. Larry Fitzgerald, 1 more year maybe for him, probably, but we'll see. But the defense is aging. The secondary is getting slower. I think the defense still has work to do, but if Kyler Murray can make plays and be a difference maker, it's gonna be a very interesting season for the Arizona Cardinals. Number 24, the Denver Broncos. There haven't been many issues surrounding the Broncos other than getting the new quarterback in Joe Flacco, who looked dead in his last couple of years with the Baltimore Ravens. He even got benched for Lamar Jackson, who I don't know how Lamar Jackson took the Ravens to the playoffs last year, but that's another story. But the defense should still be very good. They brought in Vic Fangio, who did a phenomenal job with the Bears defense last year, and it's gonna be interesting that he has another legitimate pass rusher in Von Miller, who still, I don't think he's as good, quite as great as Khalil Mack, but I mean, Von Miller, former Super Bowl MVP, who knows if he'll randomly show up again. But Joe Flacco needs to prove he's a capable quarterback again, and he needs to show that just like in that Super Bowl run, that he can tear it up in Mile High, because his skill set apparently is well suited for Denver, but only time will tell to see if that actually unfolds, and if John Elway knew exactly what he was doing when he traded for Joe Flacco. Number 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nick Foles takes the reins for the Super Bowl MVP from the Philadelphia Eagles, comes over to Jacksonville on a 4-year contract. But we know how capable he is of engineering an offense. We saw it in both of his stints with the Eagles. The first one in 2013, the second during the Super Bowl run. And you can also say that as well when during the Eagles' miracle playoff run last season. And the Jaguars continue to once again emphasize defense, but can the Jags play together? Can they be fundamentally sound? Can they be well coached? I think the Jaguars still need to figure that out before they can consider themselves a playoff team. What looks to be a very interesting NFC South with 3 other teams that have their sights on January football. Number 22, the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers are certainly going to look better with a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo. And I mean, you got to give Nick Mullins credit for coming in and being a good service at times at the quarterback position. I mean, remember that Thursday night smashdown of the Oakland Raiders on primetime TV in front of a national audience? Yeah, Nicky Mullins, but he won't be the quarterback for now, as Jimmy Garoppolo hopes to have fully recovered from a torn ACL. And I also like what the 49ers are doing in rebuild. They get Nick Bosa with number 2 in the draft. But the 49ers still have issues in the secondary at all positions except for the one that Richard Sherman holds down in year 2 of his contract with the 49ers. Secondary inconsistent. I think George Kittle is going to be an interesting story in year 2 as a tight end. But if he's actually one of the fun stories for the Niners fans, I wouldn't expect him to go anywhere, especially in a brutal National Football Conference. Number 21, the New York Jets. Like the Arizona Cardinals, they'll be one of the more interesting teams in the NFL, as the Jets, let's straight face it, they loaded up in free agency with adding Le'Veon Bell, maybe the best free agent of the season, of the offseason. They also added Jamison Crowder to give Sam Darnold a target downfield. They get C.J. Mosley, probably the best linebacker available in free agency. Oh, and they got Quinton Williams in the draft too. That the Jets added above average talent at 4 different positions. But will front office distractions get in the way of the Jets' inability to succeed? And And I mean, I really liked what Joe Douglas has brought to the table with the Jets after coming over from the Eagles. Adam Gase is going to be a decent fit for Sam Darnold because remember, Adam Gase had Tannehill the last couple seasons, and now he has a more legitimate quarterback in Sam Darnold. But I think Sam Darnold and Adam Gase can work together. But the pass blocking offense, the pass blocking O line isn't that great. I still think the Jets still need to correct that in off seasons to come. But it's gonna be interesting if Le'Veon Bell can be the running back Sam Darnold needs going forward. And again, Le'Veon Bell long term contract. It's going to be one of those seasons if the Jets can actually provide some real hope for its long suffering fans going forward. Number 20, a playoff team from last year, the Houston Texans. Why are the Houston Texans down at 20? And even though they have a great defensive front in J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, Deshaun Watson is good. DeAndre Hopkins may be the best wide receiver in the NFL, maybe. Here's the problem. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. I think the offensive line is the worst in the NFL. I think so. Because I think that's going to be one of those units in which a unit is so bad that it makes the rest of the team weaker. And the Houston Texans clearly did not address that in the off season. Yes, they got Titus Howard in the draft with their first round pick, but Titus Howard is as important as he is to the Texans. He's actually like a third or fourth rounder, so I think the Texans got a huge reach in Titus Howard, but still, the offensive line is a mess and will be the downfall of the Texans and why I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Number 19, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers bring in most of the same pain on offense with Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, and others, but the Panthers need to get some production from wide receivers, especially Curtis Samuel needs to have a big season for the Panthers if they want to make the playoffs. And with game management, the Panthers need to cut down on turnovers. Cam Newton's got to be better than a 58% completion percentage in a quarterback-driven league. That's just not going to cut it in this league. The defense is still suspect. Their secondary has issues. And their back seven isn't that great, despite having Luke Kuechly as middle linebacker and one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And is this going to be Titanic Ron Rivera's last season as the coach of the Panthers? He's got a lot to prove, and if the Panthers miss the playoffs, I think you really need to consider dismissing Ron Rivera. Number 18, the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have experience with running back. I like what they did, with Frank Gore as a running back for Josh Allen, and as well as having LaShawn McCoy still in the fold again. Josh Allen is going to be one of those interesting year two quarterbacks that he has serviceable receivers in Cole Beasley and John Brown, but can he make them even better by using that very strong arm of his to go down the field? But in any case, the Bills' front seven is going to keep the Bills in games most of the year. Ed Oliver is a freak of nature, and I don't know how he fell down to number 9. I don't know how the Buccaneers, the Giants, and the Jaguars among teams passed on him. That the secondary is going to be very strong across the board. Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. I think they're all going to be very, very good. I think the Bills have a top 10 defense in the NFL. So, but until the offense and Josh Allen proves that he is going to be one of those legit starting quarterbacks, I think the Bills will still be a pretender. Number 17, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are one of those uncertain teams in the NFL that the Falcons are going to be, I think they're going to be the hardest team to predict this year. They've been far inconsistent the last couple of seasons since that Super Bowl run, since they were up 28-3 on the Patriots in Super Bowl 51. So, and this is year number 12 of Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Julio Jones is going to be good. But the Falcons do have questions on defense and even on the talent level. And yes, Dan Quinn has done a nice job with bringing the Falcons to a legitimate level defensively, but let's just face this. The facts need to be faced. The Atlanta Falcons are just an average team that has stars and holes. Number 16, the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to be one of those sleeper teams to sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. The defense is still very, very good. On all levels. So defensive line, linebackers, linebacking, secondary. Offensive line is still elite. I think the Cowboys are going to have the edge in the trenches for a lot last year. But the thing that concerns me with the Cowboys is this going to be the last year that they'll have a lot of their main core together, and Ezekiel Elliott's potential holdout may cause some major problems in an offense that's revolved around him. When Zeke got suspended for 6 games in 2017, the entire offensive production of the Dallas Cowboys went down, and I don't think Ezekiel Elliott is doing himself or the Cowboys any favors by holding out. Number 15, the Seattle Seahawks. When the offense is the team's strength, it might cause some fatal flaws. But DK Metcalf is going to be great with Russell Wilson, the league's highest paid quarterback right now. And the Seahawks have been known the last 5 to 10 years as a defensive-oriented team with the Legion of Boom secondary and a decent defensive front seven. But the defense has lost a lot of its luster this offseason, with losing Earl Thomas in free agency to the Ravens. Earl Thomas to the Ravens, trading Frank Clark to the Chiefs. Bobby Wagner is going to be the biggest piece of Seattle's defense, and without Bobby Wagner, that defense is full of leaks. Number 14 is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have set themselves up a future that's going to be quite interesting in a passing-oriented league with a mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson. And I think the Ravens did a good job with giving him much needed support with Miles Boykin and Marquise Brown in the draft. But the thing I don't get for the Ravens is why they didn't re-sign Terrell Suggs or C.J. Mosley, because those were indispensable players for the Ravens in the past few years, and a couple of the reasons why the Ravens made the playoffs last year. But still, those are very tough holes to fill, and I'm not sure if the defense will hold up, especially even with Earl Thomas in the fold. Is Earl Thomas going to be the same player he was with Seattle during their glory years? I think the defense still has some things to prove, but the Ravens have a very interesting future. Number 13. The Tennessee Titans, and yes, the Tennessee Titans are ranked number 13 for a reason. The offensive line is going to be great. The defense has been a big staple the last 2 seasons. The defense is going to be very good this year, and and in a division that has had different division winners the last few years, the Tennessee Titans have quietly flown under the radar, and but the thing is, if Marcus Mariota can make plays, that will go a long way in helping the Titans in a rather competitive division. And I think the Titans are capable of making a run at the postseason this year. That I think that they'll be in the mix with Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, um, and Kansas City in the fold for a potential wild card. But I think the Titans are going to be a deep sleeper in the NFL this year. Number 12, the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, the Vikings are coming off a very disappointing season last year where injuries, some injuries riddled the Vikings' chances of making the playoffs. But nonetheless, the defense is still elite. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are going to be huge again like they were last year. And Mike Zimmer is going to have this Vikings team ready to go, and I think the Vikings are going to go back to the playoffs this year, with what they have around them. Number 11, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, they lost Le'Veon Bell. Yes, they lost Antonio Brown. But yes, they also do have James Conner. They have Juju Smith-Schuster. They have an offensive line that is fantastic. Top 5 caliber offensive line in the NFL. The defense got its heart and soul back of the future in Devin Bush. The Steelers could still sack the quarterback. Cam Hayward is going to be a monster. TJ Watt is going to push up opposing linemen around. I really like the Steve Nelson fit in the secondary opposite Joe Hayden. Vance McDonald is going to be good as a tight end. And the Steelers, with all the front office drama, with all the offseason drama, they have extra motivation this year. And I think the Steelers are going back to the playoffs. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are loaded, obviously. They've had a huge last couple of off seasons, getting Baker Mayfield in the draft in 2018. I don't know how Baker Mayfield had that good of a season. I thought he was the 4th best quarterback in the 2018 draft class that included Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and others. But they have Odell Beckham Jr. to pair with his college friend Jarvis Landry. David Njoku is going to be good at tight end. Front 7 is going to be good with getting Olivier Vernon from the Giants. Sheldon Richardson is going to be a nice addition. But they did lose Kevin Zeitler and Jabril Peppers to the Giants. But I mean, those are pieces you kind of really had to give up for the Browns to be this optimistic about the future. I think the Browns I think they're slightly better offensively than Pittsburgh. I think Cleveland's going to wind up winning the AFC North this year. And the Browns have themselves set up for a rather bright future in the next few seasons. Baker Mayfield under contract, OBJ, Josh Landry under contract. I think the Browns are going to have themselves a big year and win the division. Number 9, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers quietly addressed a part of the team that was responsible for their last 2 postseason exits in 2015 and 2016. That the secondary just got absolutely, positively torched by Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons in the 2016 NFC Championship game. And then in 2015, they lost that thrilling game to the Cardinals when Aaron Rodgers completed the Hail Mary to tie the game and force the game to overtime, and then Carson Palmer then found Larry Fitzgerald for an amazing catch, an amazing run that set up his winning score and put the Cardinals in the NFC Championship game. And all 4 projected starters for the secondary have been drafted in the last 3 years. I think the secondary is going to make plays, and and actually showed that the Packers have legitimate defense that they really haven't had since the 2010 Packers that won the Super Bowl. And Rodgers is healthy. When healthy, he's one of the premier players in the sport. And this is year number 12 for Rodgers for Green Bay. Matt LaFleur is going to call the plays, and I think he's finally going to emphasize a ground game that has been a big reason, one of the reasons why the Packers have only won one championship this century. And Devontae Adams is going to be great. I think he's going to be one of the five best receivers in the NFL this year. And I think the Packers quietly put themselves a playoff contender in the NFC, and I think the Packers are going back to the playoffs. Number 8, the Kansas City Chiefs. Patty Mahomes, MVP. He can make plays left and right. He can scramble out of the pocket. So he can make cross-field throws on 4th and 10 against legitimate defenses. But can he hold an elite offense together that has had off-season distractions with Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt? Kareem Hunt was lost to the Browns. That even though Tyreek Hill had his charges dropped for his crimes, that can Tyreek Hill shake off the distractions and be a top flight receiver that helped the Chiefs be a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year. Tyrann Mathieu may not be the best safety, but I think he's a candidate for a bounce back season. But the reason why the Chiefs are not a top 5 team and why I don't think they're going to win the division or go to the Super Bowl this year is their defense. Their defense was vulnerable all season, and we saw in the AFC Championship game that how exposed they were against Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and company. So I think the defense still has a lot to prove, but I think the Chiefs are going to go back to the playoffs once again this season. Number 7, the LA Rams. Most of the season revolves around Tom Gurley's ability to stay healthy. Otherwise, Jared Goff becomes less dimensional. But right now, I'm going to assume that Todd Gurley is going to be the starter for week number 1. I'm going to assume that Jared Goff will still has his core of wide receivers in Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, and Cooper Kupp for all that matter. And yes, the Rams really did miss Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl as Cooper Kupp is capable of making plays that Woods or Cooks couldn't make, but otherwise, in a defense that isn't particularly sound, in what is actually a rather aging defense, Aaron Donald is still the best defender in the league, and he can be a one-man wrecking crew for himself. But if Aaron Donald is not in the fold, the Rams' defense is one of the worst in the NFL. Number 6, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints now have extra fuel in the fire after last year's loss in the NFC Championship game. The offense is still going to be elite. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Drew Brees are all going to be great once again. But the thing that's going to be asked for the Saints is closeout defense, and I've said on Twitter, I've said the last 6 months, yes, that was clearly pass interference against the Rams on that play, and that's why they have that rule in place for pass interference challenges. But let's also remind ourselves that the New Orleans Saints blew a 13-0 lead at home in the NFC Championship game, and teams that do that, I don't care how the officials screwed them over. I don't care about that. If you blow a 13-0 lead at home in the NFC Championship game in a dome stadium at home, you don't belong in the Super Bowl, and that's what the New Orleans Saints faced themselves with last year. And and the red zone offense has got to be better, especially after settling for field goals in the first quarter of that NFC Championship game last year. But let's also face this, that if the Philadelphia Eagles had a healthy defense last year, the Saints were a one and done team last year. That the Eagles got 14-0 on the Saints. The Saints wind up coming back because Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara were great, as well as Michael Thomas. But the Saints defense has got to play better. Number 5, the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Yes, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are still Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. They are still easily the class of the AFC East. And yes, they lost Rob Gronkowski, and yes, yes, they lost some key pieces in the defense and the offense. But I'm very interested in seeing how the Patriots are going to employ N'Keal Harry in the number 32 pick in the NFL draft last season. I think the offense is still going to be weaker without Gronk, but we've seen Tom Brady navigate these challenges in the past, and we saw that during the first half of the Patriots dynasty, where he really didn't have a legitimate tight end, but he was still able to work around that. And the defense is still one of the top defenses in the league, even though they were up and down a smidge last year. That I think the Patriots defense can be a bit more consistent for Belichick's liking. It wasn't top 5, but was top 10 last year. But I think the defense, especially with a defensive oriented mind of Bill Belichick, is going to be great. Number 4, the Chicago Bears. The Bears. The Bears. Our guy, Khalil Mack, is going to be a wrecking crew by himself again. A Bears defense, which really gave opposing offenses a lot of fits last year. And the front 7 is solid all around. It's going to be problematic if you're the opposing quarterback. Mitch Trubisky is capable of going another level after last year. There is a reason why he was a number 2 overall pick and why the Chicago Bears traded up to get him. But I still think the Bears can be a top 5 team. They can still be a team capable of getting the first round bye, even if Mitch Trubisky doesn't make that next step. If he makes a slight step, I think the Bears should be fine either way. I think the offensive line is going to make the Bears multidimensional. I think Tariq Cohen's going to have a big season. I think Matt Nagy is going to do another great job as coach, and we saw the story of Matt Nagy showing the players during OTAs about Cody Parkey's missed field goal against the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC wildcard game last year. I think the Bears are going to be great, and they are a Super Bowl contender. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles looking for their second title in 3 years. They made the playoffs at 9-7 last year, but despite a slew of injuries on defense, that you might recall, the Eagles had a regular season game against the Saints last year, and was it their top 5 secondary players were all hurt? They were all inactive due to injury. Remember that? And they also got exposed big time in the first half of that next game at home against the Giants, a game that the Eagles eventually came back and won. And Carson Wentz is poised for another big season, and he's eager to prove he's an MVP caliber quarterback again, and a healthy quarterback. And the Eagles got him locked up long term for $32 million for the next 4 years in terms of average annual value. Carson Wentz also now has a new downfield target to him in Deshaun Jackson, a fan favorite in Philadelphia, to go along with Nelson Aguilar and Zach Ertz. I think that's going to be a very strong collection of receivers that Carson Wentz had, and also you can't forget Alshon Jeffrey too. That I think the Eagles receiving core is slightly better than the one that was employed during their Super Bowl run in 2017. I think Malik Jackson is going to be a great complementary piece up front for Fletcher Cox to play with on the defense. The secondary is going to be good if they stay healthy. And Howie Roseman did a phenomenal job of keeping their core together and having them locked up long term the next few years. Offensive line is going to be good with Jason Kelsey, with Jason Peters, Lane Johnson on the fold. So and I like what the Eagles have done did in the draft. That getting some depth and having pieces part of the future in Philadelphia. That Howie Roseman knows exactly what he's doing. Number 2 is the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck and the offensive line are going to be graded once again. Quentin Nelson is on track to be a Hall of Famer. The wide receiving cores aren't going to be one-dimensional anymore. That they got Devin Funchess to go alongside T.Y. Hilton. Marlon Mack is going to be a 1,000-yard rusher with that offensive line. The defense is going to be very, very good this year. The Colts spent big and wisely in free agency. I think Darius Leonard is going to be great once again. Justin Houston is a great compliment to him. There are no glaring weaknesses on defense. The Colts are very talented all across the board, and I think the Colts are one of the most talented teams in the NFL. And number 1 is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think that the Chargers have a fantastic secondary with Derwin James, Desmond King, Casey Hayward, and they have pieces up front: Joey Bosa, Thomas Davis. You can argue the Chargers defense secondary is the best of the NFL. The Chargers get focused on depth during the draft, such as adding Notre Dame star Jerry Tillery in the front 4. Phil Rivers is going to continue playing at an all-time level. Keenan Allen is going to be a lock for 1,000 yards receiving. Mike Williams is going to be very good. I think he's a good candidate to get 1,000 yards receiving. And even with Melvin Gordon holding out before training camp, the Chargers do have some reasonable depth at the running back position that I think that Anthony Lynn can easily navigate through. But I think the Chargers are going to be one of those teams that you need to watch out for, especially in the playoffs. And I think the Chargers have a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year. Well, that's 1 through 32 all across the board, and it's going to be another exciting season in the NFL. It's going to be the league's 100th anniversary this year, and I think this is going to be a very competitive NFL this year. You can put maybe 20 rosters together, and you can say that you can legitimately say they have pieces in place to make the playoffs this year. And so that's going to do it for this podcast. That I should try to upload a little bit more, especially with the NFL season under the fold. That I'll work out something. But until then, this is John Flynn with your pre-training camp power rankings, and I'll talk to you again through the channel. Like, subscribe, comment down below what you think. If you agree, disagree, let me know, and you can set up some debate down below in the comment section. So until then, have a great time. Stay cool in the heat, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.